Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of I'm Gonna Talk and You're Gonna Listen. This is Bunker Codes, numbered whatever, 10 maybe, I don't know. Fantastic. We've got a fantastic live studio audience, and we've already started talking, and my voice has been having problems all day, but there's so much to talk about, and I know only like 2 people listen to this, but you're 2 very important people to me. So, first thing is... Oh, wait, I gotta write one more note down. Not watching vids. Okay, we'll talk about that later. So, really quick, the Bunker book hardbound, I got my copy. I did a private video that I'm sending to a few people that were interested in maybe pre-orders. And I have a special person picked out for the not for resale copy, so we'll see how that goes. It came in, the quality wise came in perfect, and the trim and everything, I mean, like how it's good. It worked out, which is insane. It means I'm getting better at formatting these darn book covers. Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about, the most timely first thing, is I want to talk about my struggles with pricing things, and then it just so happens I have a person in the chat that also struggles with pricing things. It's weird, as creators, I don't know if this is the sign. I'm gonna get comfy, by the way. I suggest you do the same. Hello chat, hello. Keeping all of your names innocent for the sake of privacy, for the sake of whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, I don't know if this is like the advent of like being an immature creator, and I don't mean acting immature, I mean lacking in the maturity of creation. But it's really hard to charge money for what you do, and it isn't necessarily because you don't see any value in it. The hard part is like seeing the worth of your time. Like when I'm doing my day job, I I know what I'm worth, and I know I'm not getting paid as much as I think I'm worth. But I know how much value my work brings, and I know what the going rate is, and I also know that I outproduce everybody in what I do, and I produce a much higher quality. Is it perfect, though? The answer is no. Do I make a lot of mistakes? The answer is yes. However, I'm not formally qualified to do most of what I do. That's simply because the time it would take to get the formal education, if nobody's going to compensate me to do that, then it's kind of a wash, right? So I just do my best and muddle through it, and I get paid whatever they want to pay me, and that's the way it goes. And so I was talking with a friend about consulting recently. The funny thing is like, if I was consulting, I know how much to charge because I know how much I'm worth, and I either consult for free or I'm going to throw a very high price at you because I know how much money I have helped make a lot of people, and rarely do I ever get any sort of a cooperative balance there, which is what it is. At least it validates that I know what the hell I'm doing, and I help people with the full understanding that I may get absolutely nothing back, and so that's fine. But at least I know what it's worth because I see how much money they make after I help them. some of them see their worth and some of them don't. But it's only because it's hard to put money on your time, and then if you're making something that a lot of people are going to consume and being able to divide it amongst that time, worry about like how soon you need to be able to see a return on it, see if it's going to be, you need a percentage of it to work on the next project or not, or if you're in the hole. So in the case of this bunker book, for example, the hardbound, I already forgot about this, but I bought a laptop solely to be able to crank out this artwork. At least as a creative mind, I knew that I needed to be able to sit anywhere. And it helps me creatively to buy a special purpose tool that makes it feel special to be able to work on a special project. I know that's weird. I could do it all on my computer, but my creativity, I can't be like tethered. I can't be chained, right? So I bought this laptop. It was the last gen. It was a great price. But I know in my mind, I know how much that cost. So I know I need to recompensate. I can't think of the right word. It's been a long day. I know I need to make that money back, right? I also know that in order for me to make money, unfortunately, every single person on the planet gets to make money before I do, right? Because I'm so low in the food chain. And you really have to have a whole extra layer of skills to slowly raise yourself up in the food chain. And by that, I mean like an engineer versus a creator. Chat says I'm kind of the same way. I need to be able to have stuff happen the moment the idea sparks in a computer. Only isn't enough. 100%. And I'm an artist. And this is so weird, but I need to step away from my computer because I feel like computers and TVs suck the creativity out of you. They really do. It's like a brain drain. I mean, there's a reason why, even though it may be stupid and it may be cliche, every single... Sorry for the dog crying in the background. He is undisciplined. He's not my dog. There's nothing I can do about it, but just keep soldiering ahead. So, there's a reason why, like in every single movie and video game, the author character is in the mountains or is at a lake. Hello, welcome. Thank you for the donos. They're at a lake. They're at the ocean. They're at a river, because it takes energy to create. Because when you're creating, you're redistributing energy, and you need a rich source of energy to draw on. And computers, I love them. I have an amazing computer, and I'm so lucky, but this thing is a brain drain. When I'm talking, unless I'm literally working on the screen, I can't even look at my monitor. I actually look up at this little tiny billboard I have that my wife made with all these little push pins of different characters that I like, and I go and look at that when I talk. So when I'm talking to you all right now, I'm not actually staring at the screen unless I see chat scroll. I'm actually staring up at all these little pins because I need to see something creative. And at work, likewise, I have some little like Matchbox cars and Hot Wheels cars that I look at just so I don't have to stare at my computer screens, because it is a brain drain. I can't stand when people have TVs on all the time. I think you should get away from your computer. I think you should go outside. If you're going to create things, I think you should take your laptop to like the farthest ends of the earth that you possibly can to keep creating, because that's when you're going to be drawing and channeling the most energy. But to do all that takes money. It takes resources. And there's a great channel that I drew a lot of my knowledge from, and I can't remember the name of it now. I had to unfollow it because it got to be too much noise, unfortunately. I can't remember the name of it. But he talked a lot about how to bid, how to compete. He talked a lot about the value and worth of time. And the reality is, when people buy something from you, they're buying all of it. They're not just buying that object. They might want it to be that, but that's not how it is. They're compensating you for all of the time and the training and the education and the years and years and years of experience and life that it took you to get there. And that's why I think, like, part of the reason why, like, the older you get, like, the more money you get paid, a lot of that is because you've just garnered more experience. You're adding more intrinsic value just purely based on the amount of time you've been doing something. Because even if you aren't perfect, and anybody who says they're perfect or are perfectionist, when people are saying they're perfectionists, I look at them like they're idiots. Because I've never met a perfectionist that's any better than anybody else. You're just a narcissist at that point. I make tons of mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. But I'm willing to try. And also outproduce everybody. So I think it's okay to have both. I think it's okay to have somebody that leans towards an attempt at perfectionism, because there's some, like, zero failure jobs where things really ought to be perfect at the same time. I mean, the first time. They probably won't get it, but, you know, if they follow the scientific method, they'll get a hell of a lot closer than me on average. However, I can outproduce them like 3-1, and it might be, like, good enough. And a lot of that just favors being able to make decisions and being able to make something. Because being able to make some kind of decision is always better than no decision. So being able to make some kind of content is always better than making no content. And there's another YouTuber, Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. I know I bring him up a lot. But he talks a lot about how even if you only learn, like, one thing, or even if you only think you know one thing, try to share that thing. And I second-guessed myself for so long writing bunker codes. I know it's not a great book. I stand behind it. Oh, my co-host is here. Hello, co-host Ringo the cat. I stand by the content in it because most of that I've personally done many, many, many times. There's only a few things in there that I hadn't personally done. Like, obviously, I haven't been in, like, a nuclear apocalypse or whatever. But now that I've read up about it, I would probably do okay. Alright, so I think for folks that are first starting out, maybe you're uncomfortable with charging. I get that. So here's what I would do. If you're uncomfortable with charging, you could at least figure out how much time it took, and then try to figure out something based on that, at least for an idea. Or you can ask for like a donation or something. And if you don't want the money, ask them to donate it to the cats or something. I don't know. For a long time, what people did was like, that was kind of the whole funny like idea behind like the Buy Me a Coffee website. I think was like, a lot of people feel better kind of rephrasing and rebranding their donations to like, you're buying my cats a bag of cat food, or you're buying me a 6-pack of beers or something. I've seen like a lot of that. And what I used to do back when DLive was really hopping, way back when, before a certain event happened on a certain day that changed the world. Yeah. What everyone used to do way back when to kind of help the donation thing is you would put a progress bar on top, and then you would write in the progress bar what you were working towards, so you could immediately see what, if you know, to make sure you're not throwing money into the ether. Because I'm not going to name names. I want to, but I'm not going to. There is a lot of people where I can tell you those donations go absolutely nowhere. There's a lot of people where they don't even take the money out, or you don't know that they're going to go spend it on something ethical. I've known people that have taken their donation money and spent it all on drugs. I know people who have taken all their donation money and wasted it on e-girls, where you don't even know if they're getting the money. Honestly, they could be donating the money to an e-girl and find out that she has like an e-pimp that takes like 90% of her money, or pays her a flat rate of $10 an hour, or she could be like an indentured servant in a big house, a big warehouse somewhere or something. On the other side of that door could be a cage. Like, you have no idea. Now, I'm not saying like don't donate money to people anymore, but there's a lot of like seemingly virtuous people out there who talk a big game about how virtuous they are, but they're spending all their money on drugs and e-girls. And so kind of how we used to handle that is like, everyone would say what the person was donating towards on their stream. And before the certain date that'll live in infamy, the donations used to like really fly, and I made a decent amount that was enough to buy a brand new computer in parts, mind you, over the course of like a year on this platform. And that was back when they didn't take very much. There's no way I could do that now for two reasons. Number one, they take way too much. And number two, I only make enough to cash out like twice a year or something like that. So, versus I was cashing out like every 2 weeks. So I was able to make enough to get a computer. But what I did is on the little status bar, I used to tell people which thing I was working towards. That way they'd be like, oh, cool. This week he's working on his video card. Granted, these were 2 Gen old video cards, but this was before the price spiked. So you could get like an RX 590 for like a couple $100, you know. It was in between crypto spikes. So video cards were very affordable. And I was like, uh-oh, I need a new power supply. And so I basically like price parted out an entire computer. And I did it one donation at a time. And I would stream video games or talk, whatever the hell I did. I don't remember. But after my last attempt at a business crashed, which was the webcomic thing, I decided to make sure it was 100% sustainable this time. And so I put goals. I put goals together, and that's how like all the streamers kind of kept everybody honest. Make sure they weren't just, honestly, it was an honor system, but making sure people weren't flushing their money away. And I don't do that anymore because there's no point. I tried, you know, but I think everybody's just hurting way too bad financially. But that's not to say, like, if you really legitimately create something for somebody and they sort of kind of asked for it, you should give them, you know, shout outs or drive them traffic. You should do something to help collab with them a little bit. Like, if you make songs, if you make YouTube content or whatever, I'm gonna try to drive as much content to you as I can, but I can't do it all. You have to have the pride and see the value in yourself to also be able to accept that you're never going to be good enough. You're always going to have like a semblance of imposter syndrome, especially when like at the top of every mountain you realize there's like another mountain. So if your brain is set up to think that you're undeserving, no matter how good you get, you're never gonna feel deserving because there's no test you can take. Unless you do like Battle of the Bands. You know, there's no test you can take for this. Same thing for art. You can enter art contests, but you're just going to get your feelings hurt. Because you shouldn't be trying to compete with other people. You're trying to compete with yourself. All you try to do is just make improvements. There's always going to be people like light years better than you. Some people have natural talent. They'll just peak early. And then you'll end up surpassing them because they'll hit a wall and they won't be able to improve. Some people get stuck in their own heads and they never create anything. So you have to be willing to innovate and not reiterate. Not get stuck reiterating forever. Don't get stuck in your own head. And you might say, "Oh, you're a effing hypocrite. Look how often you sit there and re-release new versions of your books." There's really 2 reasons to edit a book, and one of them I have to make sure I don't do. Writing, a writing strategy is very subjective. There's multiple ways to convey an idea, and so I have to make sure I don't get stuck in that trap. However, if I need to add context, clarification, or colorful commentary while making sure I don't accidentally make all of my color commentary redundant. That only adds value to the future people who read my books. And so P&W Affliction, number 1, Recycled, is a perfect example of that. There's different people that read it, even though it's a very, 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 very simple story. People read it and they have like different hang-ups, and I can tell that they miss different things, because besides Rail and Eggs, I think P&W Affliction number 1 is the story that I've read and reread the most. I know contextually it's solid, and yet people still don't get it. And that's because there's some people that want pictures, and there's some people that want a map and stuff, and that's great. But I think people need to use their imaginations. But if they get lost, they get lost. There's some people that are going to get lost even with pictures and a map, and grid coordinates and color crayons, or they just weren't paying attention, so they're just going to disagree with the map that you wrote because they missed the context anyway. So a lot of that, you're just never going to win. But I don't ever go rewrite book number 1 in a different style, because it's going to have to stand up the way it stands up. I wrote it the way I wrote it. But if I say a bunch of its or that's, and I go in there and add context, that doesn't hurt anything, that just adds to it. So if you're going to reiterate a form of your art, don't just change it because you have evolved and changed. Change it because you want to add something to it. Don't reiterate. Constantly be increasing your technical expertise, which, don't get me wrong, there's always going to be a dip in quality whenever you change, but you make the changes in ways to where it raises your capacity. What you do is you keep creating over and over and over again. You keep iterating and you keep making leaps in quality and capacity. Through that, you will gain the insight into the fact that you have made efforts to increase the value that you're bringing in your work. And then you compare your new work to your old work after there's been that honeymoon period's worn off of the new software, and the learning curve is over with, and you're back up to your same production level, but you're with software that has way more capacity. And then you rank your new work against your old work and see how far you've come. And with every book that I write, I try to improve something. And with Heartland, I tried to improve how I tell a story from different characters' point of view without losing the reader. And that was a big deal to me. We also took on a new challenge of how to do the book cover. And I think it turned out really well. Chat says, I think I'm getting close to being able to make a buck. One of my biggest issues is mixing. But your friend found way better methods. Yeah. And there's always going to be a dip in quality at first. But what you earn is a greater capacity. And in being able to add color to the inside of my books now, my next book, I can add color images inside if I want, on purpose, and not just because it's like based on popular demand. So my next book, I might add a colored map, you know? But I earned it. I worked my way there legitimately instead of trying to like shoehorn it in. I earned it. I worked my way there. And even though I'm going to charge more for the Bunker Codes hardbound, now that I'm over that hurdle in new non-collector's edition stuff, you know, people are going to maybe see some more colored work coming into the pages. And if there's enough of a demand, an outcry, I'll try to do another comic book. And so here's the funny thing. It's been 7 or 8 years since I've worked on my comic book last. If I do a new comic book with Hoodie, I can already tell you it's going to be 10 times better. Even though the principles are exactly the same, the technology is basically the same. I've honed my craft significantly. Even though this art doesn't look super clean, I was able to produce it like 10 times faster. And it tells the story just the same. Granted, like this one's like a little bit more complicated, but I still think I only busted this out in like a few hours. But I'm not going to charge like per image in the Bunker book. But I wouldn't do that with a comic either. I kind of aggregate it all together until I get a feeling. Because it's not like I made something with my hands that only one person's going to enjoy. I used to make like little plushies for my webcomic, and people could buy like the little plushies if they wanted. They weren't very good. I thought they were cute as all get out though. I played with different ways to make them until finally I could make them pretty quick. But to be honest, you might think I wouldn't charge anything for my first couple. Actually, it was the opposite. I charged more for my first couple. That way, I had enough money to buy myself more stuff, so I could keep making more. Did I feel good about doing that? No. But I told the people, I'm like, hey, these are my prototypes. Would you buy these prototypes from me? And I'm going to buy more stuff. Try to make them even better. Or then you can buy the next one at a lower price if you want. And a couple people bought my little plushies. I didn't sell them to make money, because even though I sold them at like a markup, I put way more time into them than I was ever going to get. But people were getting a unique one-of-a-kind thing, and they were getting my prototypes. And they were decent. They weren't amazing, but they were decent. They were fun. And I think people could tell, even though like the technical quality wasn't there in my prototypes, they could tell the time that I had put in. And it's the same thing with this art. Like, this art isn't amazing and it's janky and none of the lines are straight, and I didn't even color in the lines. But you can still see the technical quality behind it. You can tell that like I know what I'm doing. He's not floating in space, he has shadows. The perspective is right. You can tell exactly what he's doing. That's a hard thing to do. It takes a lot of time. It doesn't look photorealistic, but I don't need to do that now. I could just plug all that into an AI. What you get here is something that's unique, that's never existed before. As far as I can tell, nobody has done a book like Bunker Codes. Not even close. And I think a huge part of that, again, like I said a long time ago, there seems to be two different kinds of prepper books. The ones that people write themselves and just try to do their best. They're not perfect, but they're still pretty neat. And then there's the other ones that are like, obviously, they were just written by a bunch of subject matter experts. And you read it and you're just like, wow, this is boring. Like, there's no life. There's no life in this book. Then there's other books that you read where you're like, does this person really know what they're talking about? Are they just super entitled and up their own ass? And I started reading this book and I kind of got through like the multiple forewords that it had. And I know this author, I don't know them, but based on what I read, they lost somebody that was important to them. They lost their significant other. They're a highly trained professional in their craft and stuff. But I was reading through their little story, and I'm just like, this. I'm sure they experience like real loss, but the way they describe the story doesn't make sense. It reads more like some kind of a weird fairy tale tragedy. And now I'm going to be seeing the whole lens of this book through like, how much is this person either embellishing or like, what's their problem? Or did somebody else read parts of this or write parts of this? And I've read books like that before where it feels like two different people wrote it, but there's only one author. So when I wrote Southern Prepper 1's book, he's got two authors listed on there. Surprisingly, it is very, 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 very seamless. There's other books I've read that only have one author, and you can tell that two different people wrote it. Like, you don't know when you're watching a movie that movies have two units. They have like the non-action unit and then they have the action unit. Well, same thing with music. You usually have like a producer, and then you have the person actually making the music. And we joke about on our Saturday night show how you can really tell when the two people were not even in the same room or the same studio and don't even work together, because it is a mess. And when you self-publish, whether it's music or books or whatever, it is going to be lacking in quality, because a good author doesn't make a good producer. A good musician doesn't make a good producer. Because it takes two different brains to do that. I forgot where I was even going with this. But it's important that you value yourself. And if you have to play like little mind games with yourself to try to convince yourself that you're at least worth something, whether it's people buying you a coffee or buying you cat food or helping you put money towards equipment, you have to figure something out, because if you make the same mistake I made, It was trying to strike while the iron was hot, but not being able to produce as fast as I needed to because my production let me down, which has almost happened to me with these print books many times. So thank goodness I have 3 different ways to distribute these books. And I would say the same thing to people who are only on YouTube and nowhere else. You need to branch out. Whether it's like Spotify or something, and I don't mean Rumble, like give me a break. What a stupid thing. Like Odyssey, I love Odyssey so much, but there is nobody on there. Chat says I literally have to play mind games on myself to post. I tell myself, well, that's what I made. I don't care if it sucks. The thing you got to remember, like how I started this all out, is it's okay to suck as long as you're producing something. And as long as you continually iterate on that thing, it'll grow and it'll be worth something. So like my Glory of Scav song, tonight it's very clear, past 1700 here, it's time to go defend interchange. I will always watch your back, wouldn't let you fight PMCs alone. Sometimes I just forget NDs that I regret. Can't hear shit when you're over there gasping. So like, that's the first song, and it sucks. But it's fun, right? And for some stupid reason, Ringo, it sucked so bad that Ringo just left. RIP. That song sucks. But it's so happy, and it's also like the first song. And I've made a whole album now and a couple of spin-off songs that some got produced and some didn't. Glory of Scavs is like the first song that I actually know all the words to. And I sang the song over and 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 over because my secret producer of the song, my secret shadow producer, had me sing the song 3 times so I could layer it, which is why it sounds as good as it does, and I would have never even thought to do that, but it just sounds so much better. Do I think that's appropriate for every song I do? No. But like, and did that song waste an entire weekend of mine? Yes. Do I play Tarkov anymore? No, because I don't want to play with people that are mean and nasty. And then just to get wiped by hackers constantly after all that stress and anxiety. And did I spend a lot of money on Tarkov? Yeah. Did I make any money off that song? No. But is that song crap? Yeah, but it's really fun. And it works. And that's like the thing about this art. This art sucks. It's objectively terrible art. But it works. It technically functions as art. Right? And so I don't have to worry about like imposter syndrome anymore. Because it's just like when I go camping or hiking or something. I'm not good at camping or hiking. I'm not good at those things at all. But I can sort of kind of do them. And the fact that I can sort of kind of do it is okay. Right? Just like I can I don't know, I can maybe try to get a car to start and have a sort of semblance of like a slight, maybe tiny bit of an idea. Is it like scary and stuff? Yeah. Do I know what I'm doing? Not really, but I can sort of kind of do it. And so, I don't know. It's the same thing with like medical, like first aid stuff. I'm not like a doctor or an EMT or something, but I can sort of kind of do it if I had to. And that's not like a false sense of confidence. Again, another thing that Prepper Bunker Outdoor talks about is like, oh, he's got just the coolest name for it, and I don't remember, but he said like, most of the people that think that they know what they're doing don't know shit. And then most of the people that say they don't know what they're doing are actually probably like pretty decent at it. Because people that don't know what they're doing tend to have like, be like ludicrously overconfident. And the people who do sort of know what they're doing have like no confidence in their skills, because they think they're going to get sideswiped by things they don't expect and that they won't be able to handle. But like the people that really know what they're doing, if you go leave them alone, they can sort of kind of figure it out. And then if you pair them up with a couple other people that can sort of kind of figure it out, or that each of them know bits and pieces of it, eventually they'll muddle their way through it. And does it mean one person can do the whole thing? No. But unless you're working in like a super insane, like highly skilled engineering level sort of a deal, it's only an illusion that everybody knows what they're doing. I've met coders before that could not code, right? They wouldn't tell you that though. And then you would want them to code something, and then they would actually go and have other people code for them, and then they would deliver the code back to you. But you would never know that. And so if you knew a tiny bit about coding, you've got this person that says they're great at coding, it's entirely possible that you actually know more than them. They will just never validate that for you. And it's the same thing with video games. Most people really aren't that good at video games. They just act like they are. Or they just play one game for months. Holy cow, the dogs, man. And they just play one video game for months and act like they're amazing. And it's like, well, okay, I've already played 20 video games in that amount of time. Or, you know, they can repeat the words to like one song. And it's like, oh, I've already listened to 200 new songs. You know, you really have to wonder just really what goes on in people's heads. I think people are just so scared to say that they have no clue what they're doing, and then everybody else is too scared to say like, this might not be good, but it technically qualifies, you know? Are there going to be people that are better? Yeah. Are some of those people naturally gifted? Yeah. And other people, do they try really hard till they eventually get it? Yeah. And so what you do is you find people that are going to teach you and build up your confidence and keep encouraging you to learn new things. And you try not to get distracted. And hope that you don't get a jury summons right smack in the middle of you working on everything. Because you already know that you've got so much piled up on you. And you just know the second that you say, I can't take anymore. You know to not say that, because you know as soon as you say that, Murphy's Law is going to come and smack you upside the head, and you're going to get a jury summons, or something's going to happen to your vehicle again. So, like, you have to just be like, this works. This is good enough. I'm going to put this to rest. Exactly. And it's good enough. And I'm going to work on the next thing. And then you work on it. And it's like, it's good enough. And then you work on the next thing. Because if you just sit there and work on one thing forever and try to be a perfectionist, it's still not going to be good enough, because you haven't honed your craft. Right? The people that's why you only compete against yourself. Because the people that you try to compete against, whether it's prepping or art or whatever, athletics, the people that you're competing against either have a natural talent or they've been doing it forever. And so, like, making card games, you know, I knew somebody that made card games, and he did really good at it. It wasn't perfect, but he did really good at it. But me and him just had a falling out because he didn't really value communication. I had two completely different friends like that. I had a friend like that we were working on a card game together, and he didn't value our collaboration as much as I thought he did. And I had another friend, we were collabing on podcasts together for a really long time, and he sold it out from under us, even though I had been a co-host for years. And we were doing like 3-4 hour long podcasts, and they were amazing. And one day he just sold it out from under us, me and the other co-host. Chat says that's my other issue. When I get an idea, I want to spend all the time on it so I can hurry up and show everyone. Yes, but that's good. That's good that you strike while the iron's hot. The good thing the thing you got to remember is, like, you have to be able to quantify, like, when done, what done is, so you don't just, like, beat a dead horse. Like, when you're giving somebody a haircut, you got to be like, okay, this is close enough. You don't want to overdo it, or they're going to look funky. Haircuts are like a perfect metaphor, because giving somebody a haircut that looks good immediately when you give them the haircut is actually a completely different art than making sure their hair is still going to look good for a week or two. So if you go to, like, a hairstylist, you're not really paying for a haircut, because haircuts aren't really that expensive. And at least they shouldn't be. What you're really paying for is your hair to look good immediately upon leaving the salon. Right? Because you want that instant gratification. Oh, chat says I need to stop underdoing it. I do everything in one sitting and never step away to refresh and hear one of the freshers like the next day. That is very common when writing essays. I've helped a lot of people through college, and I never cheated for anybody. But I can tell you with essays, they were all making the same mistake. Professors can immediately tell when you have written a paper in a single sitting. It's really weird, no matter how good of a job you think you did. But you can tell. Sort of like when you print a piece of paper on a printer. There's something weird about essays where they just seem flat. They lack a dimension. And it's because your brain was at the same place at the same time when you wrote your whole paper. And I believe music is the same way. I think that my album with Cameo would have turned out a lot different if I had worked on each song for like days. Oh, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go deal with the cat litter box. For reasons I'll spare everybody from. But you know, when I wrote that album with Cameo, I was getting the verses done right once, and most of them lack the dimensions that you get from performing a song enough times that you become comfortable with it. All right, I gotta clean the cat litter box because the roommate's cat just dirtied it, and I'll rest my voice anyway, so I'll be back in a few minutes. What I will say is that people can tell the difference when you've put work into a project, especially if you're working with another person. They can tell if one person put in a lot of work and the other person half-assed it. And I didn't half-ass it on the music album that I made. The problem is like I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning as I went, and I made a lot of audio mistakes. And it's very similar to my webcomic, where I put a lot of work into it, but I made a lot of like technical graphical compression mistakes because I had no idea what graphical compression was. Like, I didn't know how you can like permanently screw up your art forever by saving it in the wrong compressions. And with music it's the same way. I think you know that, the person in the chat that I'm talking to that's saved their music in the wrong, either in the wrong compressions or was working at it in the wrong compressions to begin with. You don't ruin the music forever. Like, I didn't ruin my artwork forever, but I limited its capacity, my artwork's capacity, by not saving it at its native resolutions and saving it in its raw file types. And it's the music. The music's the same way. You got to keep the raw takes. That doesn't mean like that your music's not polished. It means that you have to save the originals. And I just screwed up so bad, and my very very first digital picture of like Future Paladin, I screwed up so bad and like rendered it and saved it and rendered it and saved it lower in lower and lower resolutions, and I just kept like overwriting the darn thing. For the life of me, I don't know why I kept saving it and overwriting it instead of making multiple versions. I have no idea why I did that. Hey, buddy. And it's the same thing with my very first piece of fan art that I ever got on my webcomic. For some reason, I like maybe saved it in its native format, and then I was like keeping it as a desktop wallpaper, and I kept like saving it and resizing it, and I had no idea that I was saving it as a JPEG, which was just like destroying the image every time I resaved it. And it wasn't until way later, because this is back when, like, okay, I don't want to say like these were back on like CRTs. Flat screens were very, very early on, but we're still talking about like 800 by 600 or whatever those like very early like 4x3 flat screen monitors were. It was like 800 by 600, right? So you're going from like 640 to like 800, and so you would maybe like, take the JPEG and make it a little bit bigger and resave it. And you're saving it at like 80%, which JPEGs are already shit, and you're just adding like artificial artifacts to it over and over and over and over and over. Which JPEGs are notorious for just adding digital artifacts for some stupid reason. You could have like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you could have like a white piece of paper and just save it as a JPEG, and I swear it'll just start adding stuff to it. And music is that way too. If you don't save it at the right bit rate, and then if you jack that quality up or down without saving the originals, it starts adding stuff to the music that's not there. And then like, I don't know what the real words are, but it like tops it out. It tops like the ceiling of your music out to where you can't turn the volume up anymore, because you've lost all your fidelity, and you don't even know it until it's too late. And it'll just be blown out no matter how much you turn the volume up. And I struggled with that a lot. Again, my secret producer, I didn't fix any of that until the glory of scavs. Like a scav in shining armor. Wait, what is it? Like a scav in level 4 armor. Are you ready to go? Like, I didn't know. I thought, like, to get my volume up, I thought I needed to, like, shout into the mic louder. And what I didn't know is that, like, my whisper rapping and stuff was okay. Ketchup apple pie, burn it in your eye. Helicopter sky, stuck in traffic, won't die. Like, I didn't realize that, like, I don't need to be like whispering that into the mic to make the volume louder. Like, I had completely spaced out on the soundboard stuff because I thought I could just send the raw files to somebody. But what I didn't realize is, like, so much of it was blown out that it couldn't really be upscaled because it was already blown out. And I learned all that the hard way on the Glory of Scav song and had to redo the whole thing, which thankfully I hadn't done a ton of work on. Really. I mean, I sort of had, but it wasn't super, I mean, it took 2 days, but it wasn't super painful to redo. It was painful, but it wasn't horrible. And then my very first episode of Bunkercast, I immediately realized that I made the same damn mistake. Except I had shortcuts, volume turned down so low that I didn't know my volume was blown out. And then that hasn't been a problem. Hasn't been a problem ever since. Chat says, I know what you mean. Music production's a beast to get started. So many mistakes. It's hard to imagine. The gatekeeping in music production's real too. Yeah, the gatekeeping in coding, the gatekeeping in art, in artistry, period. Do you think the people that could crank out those bubblegum animes all day long, Do you really think they want to share how easy it is? Granted, it's not easy. They've just been doing it for a long time. But they learn all the tips and tricks and secrets and shortcuts. And they know why everything works. But they won't tell anybody. They want you to figure it out yourself, or they want you to pay them shit tons of money. Even though, in all likelihood, most of them were taught by somebody else, they just don't want to pass it on. Because they know that you're their potential competition. You'll find multiple producers using the same DOS, saying 4 different things and contradicting the last. Well, that's what happened to me when I started using, not Fruity Loops, the one that I use just to make my little simple bleeps and bloops. I remember you and our other 2 music friends were trying to help me. And we spent hours and hours and hours and hours trying to help me, only to figure out that since the stupid program had glitched out and wasn't detecting my speakers, that the program just doesn't work. But it doesn't show you, it doesn't tell you that it's not working. It didn't detect my speakers. My headphones didn't detect my headphones. So it just didn't work. Because it couldn't output to something. So it lets you use the whole entire program. But it wasn't doing anything. It would let you click on stuff and move things. And load stuff and try to play songs, but there was no volume, no audio. And it doesn't tell you. It tells you like one time at the beginning, but then it shuts off really fast before you can see what it says. Because they've got these idiot engineers. Yeah, you've got these idiot engineers that don't use their damn software. And they just assume, oh, everyone's always going to have their shit plugged in. But that's not the way Windows works. Even on my microphone, like if I'm not constantly watching my audio levels, because of the way freaking gravity works, like this plug could just come out and then my mic could just stop and I could be talking for hours if I'm not constantly watching my levels. So I have my stream levels and I have my recording levels. Well, I've had it before where like my mic drivers have like partially crashed. So they were coming through my OBS, but they weren't coming through my Bandicam. And I can't tell you like how many times when I used to record video, because when I used to record my video games, and there would just be like no narration for an hour. And it would just break my heart because people used to listen to video games to listen to the narration. So now it's switched and people can't stand the narration anymore. So yeah, it's picking the mic up great, but no live output, so I couldn't hear myself. I had to add way too much gain to my vocal. Yeah, I remember you told me about that. So it's funny, I've never had that problem, but it's because I have Open Your Mic. So, interesting, right? Like, there's so many different ways to do things. Or I have Open Ear headset, I'm sorry. Did I say mic? I meant to say I have an Open Ear headset. So I can hear myself. But so like, I had to change all my audio to like, I have like a screen on it, but I have to have like the dB turned down and I have to have like a really high pass filter. And I can still spike this thing, which will hurt people's ears if I crank the dB up to like 8. But at least the volume won't be blown out. I still don't understand engineering wise how or why that works. But it does. I think it's because when I have the filters cranked up, it records more range. I just have to amplify it. But like, that's shit that you're not gonna read online or find anywhere or hear on any tutorials. It's like the same thing when you and somebody else were trying to teach me about breathing, I think it was. You know, I could never figure out like why it felt like I wasn't taking full breaths until I watched that video. But like, that's nowhere. I've never seen that before, and I've never seen that since. About taking like the full breaths. And people, they gatekeep all this shit. And so, yeah, you don't know what's going on, you don't know who to ask, and then you're gonna sound stupid. And the problem is with all these gatekeeping communities is that as soon as you ask a newbie question, it flags you as being a newbie and nobody will want to talk to you. Because they will think that you're muscling in on their territory, and they think that you're going to suck all the time and energy out of them asking stupid ass questions. Never mind that you're just like stuck. A headphone amp? Yeah, I would have never, I would have never even thought about headphone amps. I was making just so many stupid mistakes. Like, I was listening to the music. I was listening to the beat on a Bluetooth. I did the whole album almost listening to the beat on a Bluetooth. So half the songs are like off beat. But you almost get used to it after a while, and it doesn't bug you anymore when you're listening to the album over and over again. But I'm sure there's some people that are like, this person's so stupid, they didn't even have the beat, and the producer loaded it later. It's like, no, I had the beats. I was just listening to half those tracks on Bluetooth. And Bluetooth lags. But there's a lot of people that will tell you Bluetooth doesn't lag. Those are fireworks. Those are fireworks, Ringo. It's okay. Don't ask me why it's fireworks day to day, but I guess it is. I got in an argument once with somebody telling me that Bluetooth had no lag. I'm like, dude, Bluetooth's insanely laggy. Like, wired is way better. No, Bluetooth lags. No, it doesn't. Because I was buying like a couple gaming mice ago. I'll never forget. It's like 2014, maybe 2014. That sounds about right. So many offbeat tracks we were recording in this, and I think it's called Soft Record. I had to drag it in place. Yeah. That's what my producers were having to do. I felt so bad. I had no idea how bad it was. Until I watched Cameo live. He live edited one of my songs. Or a couple of my songs. One night. And I watched him live editing them, and I realized the whole track was off like a millisecond. Which is like, obviously that's how much Bluetooth lags. You think you're listening to everything in real time, but you're not. It's already happened. When you're listening to things on Bluetooth, it already happened. So if you're trying to play like a shooter game, and you hear a shot on your Bluetooth, you've already been being shot at. So if you die all the time, that's why. Because you're just standing there and you don't even know you're being shot at. Because of the lag on Bluetooth. So stupid. And if you have a Bluetooth mic, that's why everyone reacts so slow. Because you're talking and it's taking all kinds of lag till it gets to them. But there's just so much gatekeeping, like, and I get it, they don't want to have to hold your hand if you end up asking them a million questions. But at the same time, like, they also don't want you as competition. So when I made my Unity game, what I would tell people is you have to put in like the sweat equity to tell people all the things that you've tried first, so they can see that you've put in the effort. And I think maybe in a lot of ways it's the same thing with prepping, and it's the same thing with... It's definitely that way with coding, and I'm sure it's that way with music, and it's that way with art too. People, and it's for sure that way with writing. Before someone's going to help you with writing, they want to see what you've written first, to see if you've even tried, to see if you're even worth helping. Of course, at work, if your job is to put gas pipes together, you don't want to turn the place into a crater before asking for help. And so, or if you're a server admin or something, or if you're going to have to delete a bunch of records, or if you're sending out payments, there's some things that you need to be careful about. Turn on the metronome. Yeah, me and CDK have talked about that metronome, that pesky metronome. The funny thing is it doesn't even annoy me. I just don't ever use it, because if I have to sing listening to the metronome, it's going to drive me insane. But when I listen to him producing listening to the metronome, it's fine. How's it going? I'm doing my podcast. If you have any questions for the podcast, let me know. We're talking about gatekeeping and creativity and feeling your worth out. I help everybody, but I do need to see that they've actually tried first, or they will just latch on to you forever. And I know that's happened to CDK before too. That happens with me. People become dependent and they want to just shut their brain off when they want you to do all their work for them. And that is a real problem that I have with my main job. Is way too many people have become dependent on me. And I missed lunch today because it was one more email. And I looked and I ended up spending 45 minutes answering people's questions. Yeah, exactly. If you actually care about following the beat, then you need the metronome. But on my trap album, I kind of actually it happens on Glorious Scav's song too. Sometimes I like skipping a beat or drifting into the next beat. But if I was doing it for real super serious try hard, I think I would have to do a metronome and set the metronome to the right BPM. We got the beat, we got the beat, we got the beat. Yeah. I want to do another album someday, but I need to get a different microphone because this microphone is okay at podcasting. But man, I need one where I can actually figure out why the input isn't as high of quality as I think it should be. So I can really crank the volume up and get the depth that I feel like there should be. It makes it super easy to use metronome, because you might want to use specific parts so you can cut much easier. Yeah, I hear you. So I guess if nobody's got any questions, if I want to wrap this up, I want to say that especially and writing is a prime example. People can tell the difference between you writing something and then just submitting it versus like sitting on it for a day. They can tell the difference. It's the same with music. It's the same with art. You cannot fully add the amount of dimensions you need to something on your first try, because your mindset is in a first draft phase, and people are conditioned to be able to tell that. They can tell it with music, they can tell it with art, they can tell it with writing, they can tell it with anything you create, because you haven't added like the finer details yet, and the finer details can only be applied after the first draft, and it's the same with writing. It took me a long time to get that. And so like this picture right here, I added it in pieces, you know. And you can make a checklist, like reminding yourself to add shadows, reminding yourself to add lighting. You can totally do that. And I think that would be a good idea. Like this one doesn't have any lighting on it, because I don't think it needs it. But a lot of mine, like, I had to go back and I had to remember, add lighting, add shadows, add lighting, add shadows. Actually, the wooden table that he's sitting at. But that's also like, even though that's a 3-dimensional table, that table's surface, and actually his chair's surface, don't have a thickness to them. And that's because adding that is like another detail, and most artists cannot possibly remember to add all those things. But most artists take days and days and days to make a piece. And so I should do a whole episode just on art, but you have to first draft it out to convey your idea, and then you add the details. So my opinion is, if you're going to sell something, that is one good way of seeing if it's worthy of a sale or asking for a donation for it, if you have actually legitimately gone through the full process. And if you can say you have, then I think it's worth asking some money for, like the little hoodie it is radio. Like, the radio is not perfect. It's good enough. The live is the wrong color. Would I sell that though? Yeah, I think it's cute. I think it does the job. I'd like to design his radio a different way, but like, you can tell he's got a big dial and he's got different plug ports. It shows the frequency, sort of. He's got a little microphone coming down. You can tell. You can tell. So I think you need to keep that in mind with your music. I think whether the song is good or bad, you technically producing a song in its entirety after a couple days of sitting on it, that's okay. Is it going to be like a banger? No, maybe you can use it for something else. Or maybe it could be like a B-roll. But I think you should be proud of what you make, and even if it sucks. I don't think the sound of nuclear explosions in the background mess up the recording as long as you don't have the dB turned up, the gain turned up too much. It's usually the air raid sirens that mess up recording. Air raid sirens are like way more obnoxious than nuclear explosions. Holy cow, I'm getting tired all of a sudden. Yeah. It's Christmas at Ground Zero. By the way, folks in chat that I'm looking at, you may have got an email showing what the Bunker Codes Hardbound looks like, since you're one of the people who expressed interest in it. So you may have an email about it. And anyone listening to this, it's March 20th, 2023. If you listen to this in the next few days and you're interested in a copy of pre-ordering a signed copy of the Bunker Codes Hardbound, let me know. I'm only going to be offering signed copies of this for a very, very, very short time. And pre-orders only, because the stinking book is expensive. And I can't guarantee that I have a lot of time to do signed copies of these. So I'm just going to do this once. And then it's going to be a long time before I do any more signed copies of this. So if you're one of the 2 people that listen to this thing, chances are you either don't want a copy or you've already talked to me. So, yeah. The book looks awesome. If you're interested in you want to see what it looks like first, shoot me an email. I did a private video of what it looks like. It's not cheap though. This book is expensive. But it's a collector's edition and it's really cool. So I think it's worth the value. And I guess that's kind of why this is the topic of the day, is like, yes, the Bunker Codes Hardbound's expensive, but it's listed wrapped in Corinthian leather. I don't know how. I know you like to joke around. So I can never tell if you're taking things seriously. But I don't know where to get things wrapped in Corinthian leather. I think embossing is really cool. It'd be cool if I had like an embossing machine and could like custom emboss these books. That would probably look really rad. I don't know if I could do that though. I got the Christmas at Ground Zero song stuck in my head. Anywho, yeah, I'm only going to do one batch of these. So, otherwise you'll be having to order them directly from Amazon. Commercial for Chrysler. Yeah, it sounds familiar. But, same thing with getting books with like dust covers. Like, Amazon just doesn't do that. Some of the private or more private places do like the dust covers. Having a leather bound book would be rad if I did like super duper collector's edition. Anywho, I think I'm going to cut this one because I've been rambling for a long time and my voice is just toast. But I think I managed to accomplish everything everybody asked for in this Bunker Codes book. I expanded on a lot of stuff. I put in a lot of things in there that kind of the extended readership was interested in. And I added lots and lots and lots and lots of little like Far Side. Okay, cool. Sounds good. I'll wait to hear from you. I added lots and lots and lots of little Far Side comic styles, which was one of the common pieces of feedback. and has a time capsule in it, which just makes me so happy. And I got a decent amount of feedback from the time capsule. I managed to get every single thing in here that I wanted. And it took a good amount of time that feels like the right amount of time to do the due diligence for all of it. So it's not for everybody. It's a collector's edition book, but it's got a lot of cool stuff. And from it, I will either be making a comic or a card game. And is it going to be an amazing card game? No, but it'll be okay. Is it going to be an amazing comic book? No, but it'll be okay. So, kind of my question to folks, and I'll do a voting thing eventually, is if you'd rather see the card game first or the comic book first. And then the proceeds of this, of Bunker Coats Hardbound, go to paying off the laptop that I bought. Very, very specifically, deliberately to do a special purpose built to do this Bunker Codes project. And if people want me to do the comic book first, then I'll be using it to do the comic book as well. Because it was a laptop exactly like this one that I used to do my last comic book on. So I'll be more than happy to use this one for my next comic book. Or the card game, it's up to you. And remember, the back of the hardbound is the board game. Is the board for the eventual board game card game. So, anywho, I'm going to end the podcast now, but I'll still be here to chat with everybody. I'm just ending the podcast portion. So I appreciate all of you, and buy my books and support your buddies that are creators. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye. Buy my books.